languages. Who would be better to explain it to us than mastermind of Snap, Jens Moenig, and we are super happy to have him on the UA team since the beginning of the month, so I think we couldn't have done it better, so congratulations more or less to us to have you onboarded. Before we start now looking into Snap, maybe just one link. You might have seen, I can't see it on the camera, down there in the back there's also one example for a startup machinery. Yeah? So you see then the Aero balloon, it's a balloon, so it's not a drone, it's a balloon. And just to also make the link to the sustainable goals, so the guys, and please reach out to them later on and connect with them, they also think about how to use this machinery to bring food and medication also to remote places. So I think this is not only technology but also a strong link to our sustainable development goals. And now Jens, please enlighten us about Snap and what you're doing. Warm welcome again to Jens.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, so my name is Jens Moenig, another one of these umlaut names that I guess we were challenging, like who has the most unpronounceable name. And I'm in interactive visual programming languages. Anybody know Snap? Anybody know Scratch? Some people know Scratch. So I used to work on Scratch for the MIT Media Lab, and then out of that developed a cooperation with the University of California at Berkeley to make a version of Scratch that would be suitable for higher education, for beginning college courses. And this is what I'm going to show you. It now has found a home at SAP, and that is really something that I'm very happy about. Michael just mentioned it, at University Alliances, at the Young Thinkers, and we're already using it. There is, we're having a Go Digital Night actually this Friday in this very room with, I think 200 kids coming and snapping away and programming. So this is squarely in the goal number 4, and I'm just going to go right in. I don't have any slides. I'm just going to show you some things live. So sometimes it's not about coding. Sometimes it's not about programming. Sometimes kids will just want to draw something, just want to express themselves. Like I might feel amorous, and I might just want to, draw a picture for my wife. Oh, it's not showing. See, I was showing you. Let me show this again. Hey, let's discard the heart. I was just saying sometimes, it's all about drawing. So we made this this drawing with this paint editor, and sometimes kids will really just spend a long time drawing instead of coding. But then the things that you draw are actual objects, and there are methods, there are blocks that you can use to modify them. So here we can change the size, we can reset it. Then we might, experiment with repetition. So now it's kind of already beating. We can, assign it to an event. Now if I click on it, it beats. Now I might want it to beat twice because that's just something that shows my affection more. And already I'm kind of starting expressing myself. It's something that might be relevant to me, and I might just, take this and save it and send a link to my wife, to her cell phone, to express not just, my joy of coding, but also, my special relationship, and it might help it might help express guys themselves. So another thing that, when we're talking about programming, that is relevant to kids is it could be something nice to have yourself in the program. Here's something, this is just a camera, and I should smile. So now there's a picture of me, and then what can we do with that picture? So here's another graphic effect, and so here's a ghost effect, but let's look at the whirl effect and just maybe try a number. What happens if I do the whirl effect? Oh, look at that. So how about, look at this. If I explore this environment, here's the mouse position. So I can see the mouse X coordinate. What if I, put the mouse X coordinate in here and put this inside a forever loop? And can I then animate it? Wow, look at that. So this is something you can do with PowerPoint. But with a few blocks, with a little live interactive test, you can kind of, gather some insights, find out something about coordinates. They go to the negative if I go to the left, so the origin must be somewhere in the middle. And I guess you can show this. Still beats, hey, look at this goofy guy loving you. The point about this is, it's not about training. Goal number 4 doesn't say quality training, it says quality education. And education is more than telling somebody kind of the steps to accomplish something. So what do we do with this? When we kind of brainstormed what we could do with this at SAP, anybody knows what this is? Anybody seen these things? I think they're called scenes. It's kind of what people use at the app house, at the design thinking process. And so we thought, we could use this maybe for storylines. Is this sound on? And just okay, great. So one thing, we can use this to tell stories. And let me try this.
I was born in California. Which part? All of me.
Okay, so I'm gonna do a little.
Please call me a taxi. You, sir, are a taxi.
So we can use this for storylines, just model things, for design processes. But this is just the medium we use at SAP. So how can we benefit more from coding, from analyzing things? And as I was saying, it's not just about instruction. We're guided by this principle that in programming we learn. There's this notion, somebody said, Mitchell Resnick said, it's not really just about learning to code, but coding to learn something. So what does that even mean? And I'm very inspired by Seymour Papert, who kind of 50 years ago invented the logo programming language. And for Seymour, it really wasn't about learning the skills for the industry of tomorrow, but learning to think about thinking. He called it epistemology. And this is Seymour, and it's really something that when we're using code, we can't animate things like I'm doing here, but we can also use these abilities to reason about things that are relevant to us. So one thing that was relevant to me was maybe drawing a heart, animating it, sending it to my wife. But there are other things we can analyze. So one example, and this is also now leading us to a realm where we're kind of leading what we can do with Scratch. So look at this project, which I prepared, and so what we have here is, can you see this? It's actually a project that shows 2 dimensions that are important to each of our lives, like when do I die? This is the life expectancy, and how much money do I have? What's my life circumstances? So what we see here is actually a world map. I can mouse over this. I see each dot is a nation, and it shows on this graph the average life expectancy at the point of birth and the average income. It's just the gross domestic income divided by the population. And what we can do here is we can animate this. So before I animated something just using coordinates, just using my gestures, now I'm animating it using actual data throughout the ages. And what we're seeing here is the data of roughly 200 countries over a 200-year period, graphing life expectancy versus income. And you have to know that the income side is actually a logarithmic scale. So, which doesn't happen to life expectancy, it doesn't grow exponentially. So immediately as we're looking at this, as we're noticing, this is actually quite optimistic, right? Things are getting better already, and this is something the UN Global Goals acknowledge. Lots of things are getting better. Life expectancy is getting better. It's not enough, but sometimes it's a misconception. Sometimes people believe it's getting worse, but it's not true. It's actually getting better. So now one of the interesting things is as we look at things getting better, that sometimes things are not getting better. So in 1975, we see something bad happening in Cambodia. Actually, when I first started, I thought there was a mistake here. Look at that, and look at this. Tunisia in 1819 is almost off the grid with a life expectancy of 1.5 years. And these are the things you only notice, and it actually then got better, we can see. But these are the things you only notice as you kind of animate the data, as you see them in context. Anybody know what happened in Tunisia in 1890? So when I first created this project, I ended up Googling for days. Oh, there's something strange coming here. Let me Google Tunisia 1890. What I found out was it was actually the last case of the Black Plague, and kind of really bad happening. So, there are other things that I would expect, like in 1848, Ireland, there's obviously the potato famine. We can also see, like in 1905, there's in Namibia, the German massacre on the Herero. But then there's also something interesting. Watch what's this happening. Oh, you see that? Let's actually map this in relation. Now we see the population dot size. Watch what's happening. Oops, there's a drip. You see that? So I researched this. There must be a fault in my data. And it's not World War I, because World War I was finished in 1917. So it turns out that some countries weren't affected by this, so it's not bad data. Turns out it's the influenza epidemic of 1918, the so-called Spanish flu. And by just seeing this as an animation, you can see that it's kind of the most singular catastrophe that happened in the 20th century. More people died of the Spanish flu than in all wars of the 20th century combined. And some other things, like one more thing. This is China. Look at China. Look what's happening in China. Whoa, are you seeing this? This is it's taking a big turn, and I'd never heard of that. It's taking a big turn. I didn't learn of that in school. But the data clearly shows it as I'm just animating it. Do you see what happened in 1960? It takes a huge dump, and I never learned of anybody know what this is? They had a big famine, a 3 years famine in 1960, where 45 million people died. It's kind of one of the worst things that happened. And you don't learn about these things in school. But given the tools, given the data, given something that lets you explore data, you can then become curious and start exploring the data yourself. So what this really is all about is that we're thinking about thinking, and this allows us to view things from a different perspective. So we all seem to know what we're seeing, but sometimes just taking a slightly different perspective shows us that things aren't necessarily as we see them, and it takes viewing things in several ways to actually getting to know something. Thank you.
Any other goal you would like to have an example? If that is not the case, I would actually like to show you one more thing, because you also, and then Alex mentioned that earlier, that measurement is a significant issue. So what we're trying to do currently is we're trying to actually define a customer impact index, where we also include the SDGs. So the index is a combination of the strategic fit for SAP. Is it aligned, or is the product aligned with the SAP strategy, addressing global challenges? Is it addressing our strategic move towards becoming the most innovative cloud company? And then we're using basically the SDGs to assign a specific score and value to the solution, and then we also say improve people's lives. So a solution which is directly impacting a patient, a consumer, a worker gets a higher score than it is an indirect impact. And in this way we're trying to go through our entire portfolio to do two things. Number one is to basically look at can we say how much revenue we do with sustainable products, or products which create a specific social, environmental and economic impact. And the second thing is basically look at the score of new business cases if they support social, environmental and impact in the future. So we're making conscious decisions if we're really executing our portfolio along our vision and our purpose. So with that, I would actually like to stop and start the discussion with the other bands, if that is, it's okay.